tackles with 85. The deep ball for Darius Prince, and Philadelphia's on the board first.
On the draw, this is Bryson Allen. And Allen weaving his way all the way down to the 22.
10-yard line, 5. Mayfield, Dancy, all around. Throw it as far as he can throw it. Jump ball coming. Crazy stuff. Not this time.
And you want to be a wide receiver, you're going to have to take a little bit of a hit like that as Brown got him in that shoulder, but watch. Oh, those are teeth.
Do we have a dentist on staff here?
We are back with another episode of Around the Indoor Football World, and today we get to discuss the AFL Championship game. Yes, folks, it did in fact happen yesterday. Despite reports earlier in the week that the game was in jeopardy, it went off without a hitch. Super excited to be able to say that because, honestly, there was doubts from all of us, I'm sure, at some point or another this season. Thank you guys for all joining us. We really appreciate it. But we're just going to go ahead and go around the table real quick and do some introductions for anybody who might be new here. Let's start with Ducon, and then we'll work our way back up to myself. Okay, I think Ducon's having a little bit of a lag here, but down there on the bottom is Arena Football Statement. Ducon is the main guy with Arena Football Statement, also known as ZO Productions on YouTube. So definitely check him out on YouTube. Great content covering the NAL quite closely. Doing a lot of NAL dedicated content, and everything he puts out is honestly pretty freaking awesome. And I'm a little biased. I happen to like the guy quite a bit, but at the same time, I think everybody else will like his content as well. TJ, why don't you give us a little bit of background? It looks like you're wearing a pretty interesting jersey there. What are you rocking today?
Well, in honor of the AFL Championship, I figured I'd don my old school New York Dragons jersey.
I love it. And you got the Vegas Vipers hats on. Got to cover both of our two of our favorite leagues, I guess, here. So really excited to have you join us once again. And, for anybody who doesn't know, TJ is actually a former coach in indoor football. Spent some time with Reading and Lehigh Valley, right?
Yeah, the Reading Raptors and Lehigh Valley Steelhawks.
Very nice. So lots of great experience on this panel, and I'm just a random guy on the internet. So you guys get to hear my opinions as well, but it's going to be a lot of fun today. We got great topics today. Namely starting with the AIF/NAL, NAL/AIF, depending on how you want to look at it at this point. There's actually some interesting rumors that have come out as of late that I wanted to address. And then there's also a new team that started floating around the internet and has created a little bit of a stir. So let's just go ahead and start right there. Ducon, have you heard or seen anything about this Stockton, California team that has kind of popped up out of nowhere? Can you hear us now?
Hey guys, sorry, my computer was having serious problems, so I hopped on my phone for a minute to be part of it this way. Sorry about all that.
No, you're good. You're good. It sounds like we can hear you now, and that's a great improvement over just a couple minutes ago. So I really appreciate it.
Thanks for your patience. Here's to you, fellas.
Absolutely. So we wanted to start with you. Have you heard or seen anything about the Stockton, California team that's kind of
Stockton Crusaders?
Yeah. Go ahead and give us your thoughts on them real quick.
Well, I mean, I think they're legit. To have some of the people that they have there. They've been around the industry before. They've done a lot in the industry. Scott McKibben, who was the former GM or president of the Bay Area Panthers. is kind of running the show over there. Kurt Bryan, who was the head coach of the Bay Area Panthers their first year, is part of the organization. I don't know what league affiliation they're thinking of going to, but I think they have all the pieces in place to be a legit team somewhere in one of these leagues. That's as far as I know, because they haven't shared a lot yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been a lot of speculation that has all of a sudden popped up because this team started putting out a little bit of information here and there. And I will say, you know, from what I've seen, the social media game seems really, really well done. Their website is very professional looking. And like you said, they've got a lot of experienced people involved with the foundation of this team. So it seems like it's promising so far. But again, there's very little information out there. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how everything goes. TJ, when you first saw the Crusaders kind of pop up and start to like do a little bit here and there, what were your thoughts?
It's kind of like what you said. Their social media presence is was every now and then it just spikes. And when you go on their website, like you and Dukan said, it looks very legit. It's definitely not one of those, you know, hopefully in the long term it works out ideas. It does seem like they have solid grounding and footing. But for the most part, I haven't really heard too much about them either. In terms of information, some people in different forums were, you know, talking about it and having conversations, but that's kind of ceased as of lately. So I guess time will tell.
Absolutely. And the only little bit of information that I can give that maybe isn't super public right now is that as of about 3 days ago, Stockton had not applied for NAL membership, which logistically, I don't know why they would, to be completely honest. I mean, it would make more sense for them to go into the IFL with Bay Area and San Diego right there. Or, you know, if you really wanted to go a different direction, the AFL also offers Washington, Billings, possibly Arizona. So kind of a couple different ways you can go there. But it just seemed far-fetched to see a California team in NAL when they're primarily, you know, mid to East Coast based. So definitely interesting to kind of track that and see where this is headed because, like I said, it looks like this team has a very solid foundation. I'm excited to see what comes of them, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say what's going to happen with them in the sense that if you followed last season's tumultuous off season, what you had there was the Arizona Bandits, led by Scott McKibben and Darren Arbett, trying to get the venue in Glendale, where the Rattlers are now playing. And for whatever reason, Scott McKibben's now popping up in Stockton, California, instead of pushing Arizona Bandits. And so, yeah, that raises a little bit of question in my mind as if him and Darren Arbett had a falling out or if he just wanted to go a different direction. But on the flip side of things, I think the IFL actually might have a bad taste in their mouth towards Scott McKibben for teaming up with Darren Arbett and trying to put a team in Glendale, Arizona, so close to the Rattlers. So I don't know that he has the greatest relationship with the IFL right now. Now, again, this is just speculation. It makes sense that they would go IFL. But if I know anything about the people in the IFL and Todd Tryon, you know, ownership and management are their two biggest things that they look at when considering an expansion team. And I think it's one of those too soon things for them to say, hey, we want Scott McKibben back. I don't know. Just throwing some things out there. But yeah, you had mentioned the AFL being an option. And I would think that, hey, if he was working with the AFL on the Arizona Bandits thing, then and Darren wanted to go his own direction, I can see Scott McKibben saying, well, I like what the AFL's doing. And I have, you know, some experience in California, and so we're going to go start a team there. Just a few thoughts.
No, I absolutely agree because I I honestly had not really caught the connection with the Scott McKibben, so I'm glad you pointed that out because honestly, I probably would not have. So that's a great point. I mean, that actually makes me think that it is more likely that they end up in the AFL, especially because of the fact that you look at that area and like I've just mentioned, they've got Washington, they've got Billings. If they turn around and they add in Arizona, if they bring back an Oregon and they add a Stockton, I mean, all of a sudden their West Coast presence is pretty thick out there.
Yeah.
So it would be a really good move to kind of help ease travel a little bit for Billings, who's kind of on an island a little bit there now. And then same thing for Washington. They're way out there on an island and have to travel all sorts of east to play most teams. So I think that'd be very beneficial to them as well. TJ, any thoughts on what Ducon just placed out there?
I also did not realize the connection with our bet. That would make a lot of sense because he has, ruffled some feathers, hasn't been afraid to ruffle feathers in the past either. But other than that, yeah, I didn't know that either.
Absolutely. Always interesting. Thank you for tuning in, Daniel Villapando. That is the host of our spring football showcase, which is dedicated to the Liga de Football Americano, which is, of course, the Mexican Football League, the biggest Mexican football league currently. So really appreciate you tuning in, Daniel. Thank you for the comments, man. Keep them coming. We appreciate it. Would love to hear your thoughts on the Stockton team. I know you're kind of out there on the West a little bit in Texas. So I'm curious what you think about the team. But the next topic at hand is one that I think is interesting. If you look at the NAL and the way they've tried to expand over the past couple seasons, they've done their best to bring in established teams that have a history that they can kind of lean on and hang their hat on. Hey, these teams are going to last. They're going to make it. They bringing in Wheeling, bringing in those AIF teams. Well, I wanted to pose a question to you guys, and we'll start with Ducon on this one as well, strictly because of your NAL ties. But when you, from an NAL perspective, look at the market of potential teams you could expand with, how attractive are former AWFC teams that have the ties, obviously, to Idaho and Chris Reynolds? Like Oregon, Desert Storm, and Wenatchee Valley Skyhawks.
In terms of attractiveness, I mean, just getting Idaho some help in terms of travel is extremely attractive in that way. If you're basing it off of the product that they've put out in the past, I don't think it quite fits the NAL standard. However, if they, got some stability or some other owners behind them and could raise their standard, then I think it's a very attractive option. Now, about, I want to say 4 or 5 months ago, Wenatchee Valley had released a post saying 2025 loading, big things coming. So, they've got something up their sleeve, and I don't know how much conversation they've had with the NAL, but I'm sure that Chris Reynolds has had plenty of conversation with people in the area, trying to figure out a playing partner that's a lot closer, because Idaho is still on an island.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is one of the big reasons why these potentials intrigued me so much. I mean, obviously, Chris Reynolds used to own the AWFC. He was the managing partner in there. So, he had I believe he had a minority stake in the Oregon High Desert Storm as well, on top of the Idaho Horsemen. So, I mean, lots of reasons why he would want to bring this league back. But then also, we point out the fact that these are established teams. Now, is like you said, the product, was it up to NAL standards currently? No, it was not in the past. But, they have taken 2 seasons off at this, or 1 season off at this point. And so maybe there is a potential that they come back with a lot more strength and a lot more financial backing, and they're able to kind of to live up to the NAL standards. TJ, so I'm curious of your opinion on this one. I mean, if you were Idaho, how hard are you pushing to bring in these AWFC teams?
I'd be trying really hard, much like Dukan said, because of travel and expenses, especially if they could do that. Then they could maybe even draw in another Western team or two even. That way it could almost be like its own Western division or conference that would really help cut down on travel costs, as that's one of the main expenses and killers of leagues in the indoor and arena world.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree. Anytime you can take a bus and not a plane, it becomes significantly cheaper for those teams. So I'm actually curious to see if, I mean, if I'm Chris Reynolds and I want these AWFC teams come back, and all of a sudden I see this Stockton, California team pop up, that might pique my interest a little bit. It wouldn't be the first time that the AWFC kind of ventured into California or, Las Vegas. Anyone? I mean, I don't know that there's any teams out there that could make the jump. I don't think the Kings are at that point, but it could be interesting to see how that affects Stockton's thinking and vice versa, affects Oregon's and Washington's thinking and potentially Idaho's as well. I do know that the NAL has come out and said, or people in the NAL have come out and said that they're hesitant to expand any further west without there being more than one team added, due to the fact that the travel would be very prohibitive for teams like Carolina. It's just a very far distance from one coast to the other, especially in, a league like the NAL. So that would be one hesitancy, but I could see if you get a cluster of teams, that becomes very attractive then, because then you can essentially set up a whole division out here, and maybe you divide it and you have, say, 3 divisions of 4, and you can kind of regionally play with some interdivisional play that is, a little bit more cost prohibitive. So it'd be interesting to see exactly how they kind of move forward. But the NAL, once again, we've said it all season long or off season long so far, doing a great job. So whatever you guys are doing, keep it up. I really think that you're expanding in the right way. And to be completely honest, I have zero qualms about a single team that has been added so far. So I'm really excited for the 2025 season, what it holds for the NAL and beyond.
Yeah. Can I say something about what you were pointing out? You and TJ both mentioned travel, expense. And one of the things I wanted to point out is that in reference to Idaho, especially because I've talked to Chris Reynolds about this, the expense isn't just in dollars. The expense is actually also in how well you can play. And if you look at Idaho, they always played way better at home than they did on the road. Why? Well, if you look at their quarterback, Austin Schaefer, he didn't play a single road game. He didn't make a single road trip, and he wasn't the only one. And one of the issues that these teams will run into is that they're local players that have jobs that get hired to play on the team. When they look at going and playing a game, and they're like, "Whoa, there's 2 days of travel and a game day." I can't afford to take that much time off. I'm sorry, I can't go. And so what you end up having is you end up having a 25-man roster, but you only take 19 players, and some of your best ones stay behind because they can't afford the time off of work or the time away from other things. And so literally every time that they went on a road trip, Chris Reynolds is assembling a whole new team, with the exception of a few guys. So it is, as TJ said, he'd be putting forth the greatest effort to get playing partners closer to Idaho. It would actually improve their gameplay as well. It would improve their record, their statistics, everything, to have closer playing partners for that reason alone.
That's a great point. Great point. I'm glad you pointed that out, because that makes a lot of sense. And that is one thing that I had not really considered in this, is that, maybe you do get some of those guys to travel, specifically Austin Schaefer, who played very well this past season.
Yeah.
That was a huge factor to how everything progressed for the Idaho Horsemen this season. And I think that it was tremendously difficult for them to navigate that all year. And honestly, kudos to Chris Reynolds for being able to manage that every week. I mean, it's got to be tough to essentially have 2 rosters at all times. So, I know he's uniquely equipped to handle that, but go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to mention it. Lorenz Stefan, he shows up in Colorado to play that final game for Idaho. He was in New Mexico. He took his own car, showed up in Colorado, hadn't practiced with the team or anything like that. It was one of those deals where Chris Reynolds had to scramble for a quarterback because Vincent Espinoza was gone, and that's just the nature of what he had to deal with. And if you look at the map, Colorado being their closest playing partner, that's on a bus, that's a 12-hour drive. Even if you brought in a Stockton, California team, that's a 9-hour drive from Nampa, Idaho. That helps tremendously. Of course, ideally they'd want like an Oregon Black Bears or Washington Wolfpack, like you mentioned, get it even closer than that. But I think that if Stockton was interested, then I think that would be. I can see Chris Reynolds jumping and clicking his heels and doing an Irish jig. I mean, that would be probably an exciting thing for him.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at it from Stockton's perspective, right now, they look really attractive to all three leagues to a certain extent. I mean, so why not at least have that conversation if you're the NAL, if you're the AFL, if you're the IFL? I mean, where it goes from there, it's anybody's guess. But at least open up the line of conversation and see, what's going on with the team. Is it as legit as it looks on the surface? And if it is, maybe it makes sense.
Yeah.
Cameron's got a good point here. Salt Lake City would be a better market than Oregon and Washington because it helps more than just Idaho. I'm wary to push further west than Idaho. And Cameron, that's a great point. Salt Lake would be a great playing partner for Idaho, for Colorado, even really for, Omaha and Sioux City. It's not terrible travel. So definitely interesting.
Yes.
Man, you mentioned Vincent Espinoza, and talk about a whirlwind season for that guy. I mean, he's played in the NAL, the TAL, and now he's with Tulsa in the IFL. Tucson. I apologize. So just incredibly interesting to see him bounce from job to job to job this season, but he's doing his thing. I mean, the same thing he seems to do every season and finding opportunities to play and doing the most he can with them.
Definitely.
So one more topic that I wanted to bring up that I think is kind of an interesting one. Obviously, the AAL2 lend us the Wheeling Miners for 2025, which is a great team to add to the NAL. I'm curious, do you guys see any more teams making the jump? And caveat, if not, do you believe that there is an opening for a partnership in the sense of, say, preseason games or interleague play with the AAL going forward between the AAL and the NAL? Let's go to TJ first on this
one. I think it would be a little bit of a hard sell, just because a lot of the teams in the AL and AAL2 play more in sport complexes than arenas. Also, for a lot of those teams, I don't want to throw out semi-pro, but a lot of the guys, they either don't get paid or they get paid with cases of soda after the game, kind of thing. So I don't foresee anyone specifically from the AL2 making the jump. At the AL, I feel like the Miners were probably the most suitable, and they already made the jump.
Agreed. Ducon, any thoughts on that?
I think it's an interesting idea, and I have the commissioner's number, Sam, if you want to pitch to him the idea of a partnership there. I do think it's an interesting idea. I think I agree with what TJ was saying. It's not at all the same kind of football, but the NAL, the people that run the NAL now for years have done at least one preseason matchup with their teams to give their guys a little bit of practice, I guess you might say. Maybe a little bit of confidence, because it's usually like 74-0, boost their confidence at the first of the season or something. I can see that happening with your Eastern teams, because when it comes to and maybe like a team like Corpus Christi, because you do have a couple Texas teams that are in the AAL too, and most of them are Eastern teams. Now, in terms of Could any of the others make the jump? I think if AJ Roque was completely abandoned the idea of even having an AAL2 and pulled all of his resources together, got a decent venue, then the only ones I can see actually making a jump like that would be the Jersey Bearcats. But that's a pretty hard sell right now. It doesn't look like that would happen anytime within the next 5 years, personally.
No, I completely agree. I mean, that is the one caveat here. My thoughts are literally echo yours, Dukan. I mean, if you look at Jersey, obviously they seem like one of the strongest strongest teams in that league currently. Obviously, he's a big part of why the AAL2 is even around. So, if he decided to leave the AAL2, I could see him making the jump or trying to make the jump to the NAL with a new venue and, a little bit more financial backing behind it. But at the same time, the AAL2 is kind of his baby. So I don't know that he's going to want to just abandon that and let it go. Yes. But on a preseason playing partnership, that makes a little bit more sense to me, especially like you said with the East Coast teams, first of all, because of the regional play, but then also because of the fact that it does two things. One, technically the NAL is probably going to be the home team in most of these games. So you don't have to necessarily worry about the venues from the AAL2 teams. But at the same time, it's attractive for the AAL2 teams to do this because then you're showcasing your best players to a higher league, quote unquote. The AAL2 has always kind of positioned themselves as a developmental league. So that's an opportunity to develop and hopefully elevate your players. So I think that's not only a good partnership on the surface because then you can sell that to potential players that you're bringing in, but it also does a lot of things for both leagues. It helps in terms of you're not seeking out preseason partners. You might have, a whole league, you just jump in, okay, hey, you're in my area, and you just divvy it up very easily like that. But at the same time, like you said, that does not cover every team in the NAL. So it would be unique to see, but it could be something that, maybe both leagues should at least explore a little bit. But it'll be interesting to see exactly how they continue. I mean, the AAL2 losing Wheeling is not a small loss for them either.
Right.
But I'm glad that you pointed that out, TJ. They are very much a semi-professional league currently. They have, like I said, always positioned themselves as a developmental product. So, it'll be interesting to see if any more teams try to make that leap. It's a big one. So I don't want to undersell that at any point. But this would be a good time to run a quick commercial with a little bit of a hype video for you guys. So make sure you're tuning in later on today for this new show.
Follow your passion first. First. It's the most fun thing in the world. You get up in the morning excited about what you're doing. And you got to be really honest with yourself about it.
Shout out to D's Place, our official photography and videography sponsor.
And you got to sit there and ask yourself, okay, what am I truly passionate about? What do I enjoy doing?
They do great work, and D's a great guy, so I really recommend their company. They are incredibly awesome to deal with. But if you caught the hype video, that's right. We have another coach coming to the network. TJ will not be alone. Hopefully we can get some great discussions between the two of them. My longtime friend, one of the guys that I root for the most in this league, or any league really, is Tay Brooks. He was one of my first interviews on this channel, and now we get to partner in a whole new way. He's bringing back his YouTube channel, and with it, we have decided to get together and work together to not only grow our network, but grow his channel and his show as well. So keep on the lookout for Story Time with Tay Brooks. And make sure you follow him on all your favorite social medias, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. TikTok, Instagram. He's on basically everything. So go follow him right now. Go subscribe to his channel, and definitely catch all his episodes because he's got a lot of interesting stories that are going to be coming out from the high school level to semi-pro football to overseas playing football to, you know, eventually becoming a coach at a very young age and winning a championship as a rookie coach. So just an amazing career. And now we get to find out a whole lot more about it as he goes through all these different stories that he's kind of compiled over the years. Should be really interesting. But let's move on to the AFL. You know, I mentioned it in the lead-in. The AFL had some controversy pop up earlier this week. There was an article released that said that the championship game was in jeopardy. And, you know, I don't necessarily know that that's true. I don't necessarily know that wasn't true. Either way, we got the game played. That's the main thing that matters here is the AFL found a way. And with that, congratulations to the Billings Outlaws who won the Arena Bowl 33. This is their 4th championship in team history. This is their first AFL championship, and this was actually a 10th straight trip to the playoffs in team history. So very awesome to see them get the win. It looked like, and I have to point this out because I don't think I would ever see this. It looked like Coach Walker was crying. I never thought in a million years I would ever see that out of that man, but he obviously, this mattered a lot to him. You know, former AFL player, he got to come back with the league. He got to lead the Billings Outlaws, a storied franchise, and he wins a championship in his first year. So awesome to see that for Billings. But let's go ahead and get into the game a little bit. Dukan, what are your thoughts on the game last night? Great game overall, but I kind of want to hear your full breakdown.
So many thoughts. So I don't think this show's long enough for all my thoughts, to be honest with you.
Feel free, man. Take as long as you need.
You know, I'll try to summarize it the best that I can. The first thing that jumps out to me was the venue. It was very, I mean, it's, you know, the AFL got a lot of criticism right off the bat for, oh, you're going to play it in a mall. Are you kidding me? Are you going to play it in a mall? It was just very surreal and kind of unique watching an arena football game with natural light because of the glass dome ceiling in there. Natural light and seeing the sunset, the eastern sunset hitting people's faces and stuff like that. It had a very late 90s Dallas Cowboys type of feel because of, you know, their stadium they had in Irving and during the sunset, I don't know, it just felt, and with the way that CBS Sports did their broadcast, it felt nostalgic. Let me just put it that way. It felt very, very nostalgic. It felt like the NFL in the 90s in some ways. And I thought that was a pretty cool little thing to see, you know. And I mean, even Billings helmets looked 90s. They weren't the decked out face masks with all the visors and stuff like that. It brought me back. You know, you've got the nets. You had a good broadcast of the old arena football. It definitely brought me back. And that was what I thought about the venue. Very, very interesting. And it worked. It worked. I think it looked pretty good on TV for the most part. There were certain angles that made you go, ooh, that starts to look a little semi-pro, but most of their angles I thought they did really well with. Looked really professional. The broadcast was great. The gameplay was great. Because it took, what was it? I think the score was 7-3 with 3 minutes left in the second quarter. It seems like it took the players and the coaches a little bit of adjusting to that venue before they really could start to play. And as far as the outcome of the game, I want to say a huge congratulations to the Billings Outlaws. Honestly, when they were the first ones announced coming into the Arena Football League, you know, and then some of the other teams that were coming in, it was easy for me to say, Billings isn't going to make it to the championship. No way. It was easy for me to say that, you know. And I don't think anybody really saw this coming. I guess there are a couple people that were like, yeah, Billings has a really good squad and a good coaching staff. Oh, Sam said that. But, you know, Coach Walker, Sed Bonner, I mean, the guys know the game. They know the game. They knew
exactly what to call. And to see them hold Albany to 13 first half points when the last week Albany had 44 first half points. It just said a lot about their defense. It said a lot about their grit, and they acted like they wanted it more. Let me just put it that way. They acted like they wanted it more. They played with more passion, but I got to credit Albany too. I mean, those guys assembled an incredible squad. Their offense is amazing. They had great defensive personnel. And credit to both of them for getting through this tumultuous season as what I would say looked like the two most stable franchises in the league. They just managed things well. They took disappointing news after disappointing news after disappointing news in stride and just let it fuel their fire. So a huge congratulations to both those organizations and all of the organizations in the Arena Football League that finished the year. That was rough. That was rough for them. And they made it through. When I saw Coach Walker crying, I thought it was for a lot of reasons, honestly. There's just so much. And part of it was how the game ended. Now, I told my wife I was going to go on a rant about this game because the clock operator and the clocking rules at the end of the game, frankly, pissed me off. I'm just going to just put it that way. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but does the AFL actually have a rule that on a pass interference under a minute, you can add 5 seconds back on? It's not resetting the clock to before the play. You can actually add 5 seconds to the clock. Is that an actual rule?
Not that I know of. And I've been through that rule book front to back, and I have not ever seen that.
I've never seen that. And I was pretty pissed. So they had a play where it was 14.2 seconds. No referee said to reset it, right? They run a play. There's a pass interference. So instead of resetting it to 14.2 seconds, it became 16 seconds, right? And then the referee makes an announcement, by rule, add 5 more seconds to the clock. And then it became 21 seconds left in the game. And I'm looking at this like, where is this rule and how come nobody ever knew about it? And why is nobody batting an eye? But they said Coach Walker is livid, right? They didn't show a shot of him, but the commentators were like, Coach Walker is absolutely livid over there. He is shouting at the referees, but CBS didn't cut to him. Anyway, and then, of course, Albany runs a play. They get stuffed at the 1 yard line. They're out of timeouts. The clock doesn't stop in play. And the clock operator stopped the clock for another 5 seconds before he started it. Even the commentators are like, why is the clock stopped? Anyway, it may have been just one of those, the clock operator's a little bit new to the game. But I didn't like how that finished off. And I think that added to the emotion of Cedric Walker crying at the end. Was just like, we had this game in the bag, and then suddenly we didn't. And I was upset. And now I'm so relieved. We've won. It's over. We made it through the season and we're champions. And it's been forever for Coach Walker. I mean, I think he's been dreaming of this for over a decade. So that was pretty cool. And then my last thought that I wanted to share, well, there's two of them. The first is I don't get the infatuation that people have with quarterbacks being the most valuable player. I don't get it at all. When Isaac Harker, credit to him, he didn't turn the ball over and he played great ball. He's got a cannon. I mean, he's a smart player. And credit to him, he threw for 5 touchdowns, no picks, right? He wins the MVP. All 5 of his touchdowns were to Dwayne Brown. And I don't get why it is that we have to elevate quarterbacks. Granted, quarterback's a hard position. You're touching the ball every play. You got a target on your back every play. That's great. But the term is actually most valuable player. What player contributed the most in his position out of any player? I don't get it. Anyway, that's just a little bit of a rant. For me, I think Dwayne Brown should have gotten the MVP. Lastly, to listen to Lee Hutton interviews before the season and compare them to Jeff Fisher's halftime interview last night was night and day difference. Here we have a nobody in Lee Hutton, right? He's a nobody in the sports world. Nobody knew who he was when he comes on, and he's spouting, oh, we're going to do this, and we're going to be the Premier League, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and blah, 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 right? And then when other teams are asking him important questions about how it's going to function, how it's going to operate, how you're going to pay for this, he just respond, oh, we're just going to be the Premier League. You'll see, right? And then to have Jeff Fisher, an NFL head coach for years upon years, who took the Titans to the Super Bowl, who won a Super Bowl with the Bears as a player, sitting in this booth saying, I'm the guy that's new to the game. I'm new to this. I'm learning. It's exciting stuff. I'm liking what I'm learning. And then they asked specifically, what are your plans for expansion? What are your plans going forward? Well, we do have plans, but we're going to look at those pretty hard, and we're going to make sure that those plans mean a sustainable future for years to come. And we're going to be meeting about that very soon. So rather than, oh, we're going to do this and this and this, he's actually the guy that is somebody who's humbly saying, I'm new. And that actually makes me believe in the AFL. I didn't believe in it with Hutton at all. It was just, he wasn't willing to learn from industry professionals that knew the game. He wasn't. However, that went a long time. Sorry, guys. I'm sure you guys want to say something. I want to hear from TJ and Sam on what they thought of the game.
First of all, I want to say you feel free. You were cooking. I wasn't going to stop you. So, everything you said was completely accurate. I'm glad you mentioned the clock operator because I was so confused by that whole situation. And I will be going back through the rule book to make sure I didn't miss anything, but I do not think that was a rule. Although it wouldn't be the first time that Albany benefited from a rule that we were not aware was in the book this season. So just saying, Damon Ware is extremely good at going through and making sure he has a full understanding of the game he is playing. So
agreed.
Hold on real quick. Got to pat myself on the back. As much as I hate to say it, I don't mean to sound so cocky, but I've been calling Albany versus Billings since May. I literally, that was my two teams that I picked right off the bat for the Arena Bowl. As the season progressed, I wasn't really sure. But then when we hit like week 6, week 7, and Billings and Albany are atop the standings, they've got the best records. It was awesome. I never throughout that process really truly knew if Billings could beat Albany until we watched it happen. And when they beat Albany, all of a sudden, my belief that they could win the Arena Bowl skyrocketed. I still had my doubts because Albany's an amazing team, extremely well built, extremely well coached on both sides of the ball. Lots of veterans that know exactly what they're doing and are very reliable. And Jake Medlock was one of the best quarterbacks in the league this season. Hands down, not even close. When he exited the game and looked like he was hurt, that I was very concerned by. I was like, okay, that could change the entire scope of the rest of this game. And, luckily it wasn't anything major for him. I'm glad to see that. But, to ultimately see Billings win this game, it was a little bit of a surprise to me, but I'm so happy for everybody there. And, I just really want to send my congratulations to all of them. A lot of great people involved in the Outlaws out there. A lot of people I know personally and have been talking to for many years now. And it's just awesome to see, people you root for getting the victory. And I don't want to sit here and say I don't root for Damon Ware. Colorado guy. I've been on here talking about it multiple times. He went to CSU Pueblo. It's right around the corner from me. I'm a huge fan of Damon Ware and the Albany organization, but my heart will always kind of lie with Billings just based on my ties to them. So it was awesome to see them find victory in this game. TJ, I know you're an Outlaws fan. I know we were going back and forth talking about this a lot this season. Did you think the Outlaws could win the Arena Bowl before the season?
I was definitely hopeful, but it probably took till the last couple weeks of the season. Like you said, when they pulled off that epic comeback against Albany, they really proved that they could hang in there with the best of the best. Last week against the Cats, they They went down to the wire, but they were able to pull it out. They just had that kind of that chip on their shoulder and that grit all year long, because I think honestly they knew, because they were from a semi-smaller market, that they weren't being looked at as a true title contender. And also, you know, I feel like it's a little bit of, might sound corny, but poetic justice that the Outlaws did end up going the distance and winning, because quite frankly, without Mr. Titus basically blowing up the bad information and going public, this championship game might have not even happened. So I feel like in the world of karma, it definitely came back on him in a good way.
That's a great point, you know, because honestly, he was one of the most vocal owners in all of this at first, and he was one of the first to speak out. And it seemed like once he did, it started like a flood, because then Wes from Rapid City started talking, Iowa started talking, West Texas started talking. All of a sudden, we had this much bigger picture of what was going on behind the scenes and how difficult it was to navigate for some of these teams, you know. So I'm glad you brought that up. But Daniel poses us a really good question, and I wanted to get your guys' opinion on this one. Do we feel the massive coverage around the Arena Bowl, quote unquote, saved the AFL? I'll go to TJ first.
I think it helped tremendously last night's game. Just, you know, real quick before the game even started, I got home from work. I did some outside stuff. I came inside, turned the TV on, and go to CBS Sports Network, and then just in time to see some of the pregame information start. The Arena Bowl 33 on the bottom of the screen, North Rutherford, New Jersey. It brought back its heyday in a way, because, you know, just I think also, you know, being in New Jersey, you know, kind of comparison to the Jets and Giants. So just TV appeal, it really made it look, you know, legitimate and good. But I mean, also the fact that the game last night, the first half, it almost seemed like they were kind of feeling each other out, a little bit of jitters. Excuse me. Sorry about that. It almost seemed like they were feeling each other out. It was a slow touch and go process. It really played into the Outlaws play style. And then in the second half, all of a sudden, boom, all these points get scored. It was like the perfect combo for TV. High intrigue, obviously, at the end. But I think what truly saved the Arena Football League, for at least the time being, is just like Dukan said earlier, just Jeff Fisher, just his persona, his legacy, and the fact that no matter how bad it got throughout this season, him and the team that was assembled, they brought in Jerry Kurz back. You know, he's obviously a lifer and a legend. Just everything that they seem to be doing is heading towards the right direction. They're making the right moves, and they're actually being fully transparent and not just feeding us classic sports BS to sweep the bad stuff under the rug. So I think collectively as a whole, the Arena Bowl did help a lot, but I think Jeff Fisher's presence is obviously the main piece, in my opinion.
I completely agree. And like Dukan said, his halftime interview, I think, was refreshing. You know, it was not a bunch of, you know, potentially down the road empty promises, which we got a lot of from Hutton. And in fact, you know, if you go back and look at our interview with Hutton, I very politely tried to broach that subject with him, and he kind of just sidestepped around it and didn't want to talk about it, because I literally quite honestly asked him, why talk about these things if they're not set in stone yet? And he just didn't even give me an answer. But Dukan, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think the coverage for the Arena Bowl kind of saved the AFL going forward?
No, I do agree with TJ that it helped. I do. I thought it was a good broadcast, a good game, and it makes people go, oh, there's something here. But I think that there's only one thing that can save the AFL, and that is for them to learn from the mistakes of the AFL past. When you look at the industry today, it's not a big industry. There's not a huge fan base. There's not a ton of big national or international sponsors that are even interested. They don't feel like that they can get their money's worth by by contributing. So you have to take the industry where the industry is at and say, we can only spend X amount of dollars because there's only an X amount of dollars the industry will give back. If the AFL is to be saved, I'm going to be real bold here. And I apologize if it's too bold to you guys and to the listeners. But if the AFL is to be saved, they need to listen to the IFL. How many times have we heard Todd Tryon use the statement, sustainable growth, sustainable growth? Quick AFL history, David Baker, great commissioner. It wasn't sustainable growth. It was growth, but people are just throwing money at this thing, right? They get to the end of 2008 and they're just like, holy crap, nobody wants to spend money anymore. They've been doing it for a few years thinking they'd be making money and they're not. What do? We're just going to have to cancel the 2009 season. The AFL averaged 12,500 fans a game prior to 2009. When they came back in 2010, they were down to averaging 8,000 fans a game. What happened was people were like, whoa, okay, it's not that sustainable. There were other things like streaming starts coming in. Back then in the old AFL days, they would pack the arenas because that's what people wanted to do for fun. They wanted to get out. People are more social. And these days, we're way more comfortable being keyboard warriors, watching something on YouTube telling how everybody sucks. We're not going to go to the arena, spend money doing that. It's too available. So the AFL, if they're going to survive, I think they play another season at least. But if they don't get to a point where their growth is sustainable, the people throwing money at it will finally be like, even though I'm loaded, I'm not going to keep throwing money at this because now I'm getting less and less loaded. So if I'm Jeff Fisher and if I'm Chris Shady or Jerry Kurz or any of the people involved in the AFL, you got to be okay with not being the biggest badass in the game right off the bat. You got to be okay with just taking it slow, making sure the teams that you have are completely stable, solidify them 100%. Don't think that you have to go and get every big sponsorship and TV deal out there, because that's exactly what 1.0 did. They didn't play 2009 and then dwindled from 19 teams down to 4 teams. The second iteration, same thing. They're throwing too much money at it that when a $2.7 million lawsuit with an insurance company comes up, they're just like, oh, we don't have them. We can't do this. We got to fold the whole league, right? And that's what's going to happen again if everybody's trying too hard to be the biggest, baddest right off the bat. So I don't think, in answer to Daniel's question, I don't think this one Arena Bowl presentation saved the Arena Football League, because the last iteration of the Arena Football League had their broadcast on ESPN2 in Arena Bowl 32, where Albany Empire won the whole thing. And about a month and a half later, the whole league folded. It was a great presentation. It was a great game when they beat the Phillies. But it didn't last. So this one game can't save it. I'm sorry, Daniel. It does help. I will say it does help. There's a good image out there. But behind the scenes, people got to be smart with their money.
Well, you don't have to apologize to Daniel. He says, thank you for the honesty. I love the real answers. So Daniel is very much that guy. He'll pose a question, and whatever you happen to give him the answer, he's going to accept it because that's your opinion. And now he says, in 5 words or less, what will save the AFL? And I've got one word for you, buddy, that will save the AFL. Money. Lots of it. Because that is the only way this is going to continue. They need one or multiple big national sponsors if they're going to continue to achieve what they want to achieve. We heard multiple reports specifically from, like West Texas, Rapid City, teams like this that ran into issues towards the end of the season, that even the new ownership group was not really forthcoming with money all the time, which, to be completely honest, I've put it out there before. I'll say it again. G6 has never at any point said that they were financially ready to run this league. I think what happened is they owned the naming rights to the AFL, which are very valuable, assuming that Lee Hutton does not come in and crater that value immediately overnight, which is what was happening. They saw the value in their asset dwindling immediately as quick as it possibly could. And they knew that if they didn't step in and remove Hutton and company from destroying that name, it would be worth pennies on the dollar in a year. And all of a sudden, this investment company that is trying to start the AFL over again loses all value in that name, and then it doesn't mean anything. So I personally think that they stepped in even though that they knew that they were not necessarily 100% ready to be in that position, and they just figured it out as they went. Now they have a full off season to sit back, bring in sponsors, bring in ownership, and whatever it may be, and try and move forward with a better plan going forward. And I think that's why Jeff Fisher was very cautious with his words this past weekend. So I mean, you don't want to put too much out there. You don't want to sit here and say, oh yeah, we're going to come back, it's going to be great, we're going to be better than ever, because then when you're wrong, everybody's going to point to that. So you sit back, take that cautious approach, you give people optimism and reason to believe the league's going to be better, but don't give them too much, because then as soon as you do, you're asking for trouble. But TJ, what about you? 5 words or less, what will save the AFL?
Love for the arena game, which I think, even though again, Jeff Fisher did admit he's new to it, I think him and the now new regime have already kind of proven that they do have a love and respect for the game, just because of all the stuff that they went through. I mean, I didn't look at any. I haven't gone back and looked in depth at the history of leagues that failed mid-season specifically, but I got to believe that at least 75 to 80% of the leagues in the past, if they went through what the AFL did this season, they probably don't make it to a championship game. That was just pure want, drive, and love for this league to get it to this point last night and to actually put it in kind of a decent spot moving forward. Again, if they make all the right moves and, as it's already been mentioned, move smart and slow, don't try and grow big and be the best in town right away. But yeah, so love for the arena game would be my answer.
That's a great one. Dukan, what about you?
Patience, tenacity, not more money.
Okay.
He said 5 words. Sorry, I'd love to elaborate, but that's all I'm saying.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair for sure. We'll have to dive into that next episode perhaps, because we got a lot more topics to get to. So the big topic of the day that has kind of, I feel like, coasted underneath the radar for some reason, despite the fact that it should never have, is the fact that it looks like Heron O'Neill might be ultimately leaving Salina. He posted a very, I don't want to say cryptic, because there was a lot of information in that post, but it didn't necessarily say for sure he was leaving, but he said decisions have been made and essentially kind of left it very open-ended. And then Salina shared it, which kind of piqued my curiosity even more. So I hope he's not done in Salina. He's had a great run there, Hall of Fame coach in the IFL. And, realistically, the AFL should want that presence there. But what are your guys' thoughts on this? I mean, ultimately, O'Neill is one of the best coaches in any league currently, in my opinion. So I expect that if this is accurate and he has, in fact, stepped away, he's going to be one of the hottest coaches on the market, despite, it doesn't really matter what league is looking to hire a coach. What are your thoughts on the move from Heron, assuming that's actually what is happening, and where he could potentially land in 2025 if it's not with Salina again? Let's go to Dukan first.
Let's see. I'm just hearing about this, so I pulled up the post. He says this was by no way an easy season. There was a lot of things at play. The way I come away looking at it is we overcame a lot of obstacles and made the most out of them. I'm proud of our organization for standing tall and giving me the tools to devise a plan to continue to be successful on the field. We grew as an organization. Countless hours the owners put in to make sure we had a team this season. I cannot thank them enough. I really want to give a special shout out to my players who stayed focused all the way through to the end and left it all on the field. This is a season that I'll never forget how my players responded to adversity. I want to thank Liberty Nation for always being there for me. So I guess back to the think tank to see what's next for me and my family. Decisions have to be made. It's been a crazy ride. My knee-jerk reaction sounds like that he hasn't made a decision. I don't know. That's the way I read it. He hasn't made a decision, but it's been exhausting for him. He's having to reevaluate his decision-making paradigm, I guess, because he's proud of what they were able to accomplish, it sounds like, and that they made it through the season, and he's really proud of that, but he sounds exhausted. That's just my knee-jerk reaction, and that he's seriously considering what's next for him in his future, if he needs to keep doing this or not. That's the only way I read it.
That's completely fair. And for the record, I was mistaken. I thought this decisions have been made, not have to be made. So that definitely changes my feelings on the statement a little bit. Okay. TJ, what are your thoughts on this?
Honestly, to me, it looks like he may have been put into a situation where he was given an offer, potentially from another league or another team, possibly wondering about the stability of the AFL currently. And if from the sounds of it, he wants to stay, but there are questions in his head. Should I go? Maybe potentially an IFL team is reaching out to him, trying to get him. And so now he's thinking, do I stay here with this awesome thing that, I was a part of building, or do I go to a more stable league and with a new team that I know isn't going to go through continued potential hurdles like essentially the new upstart AFL has had this year and may have, next year and the following season until they get their footing down. But to me, it sounds like he's definitely has a lot going on in his mind, and he's wrestling with those thoughts.
Agreed. And in talking to him, briefly, I haven't gotten any extra information than what's been already put out there, other than I can tell you with great certainty he will be coaching in the U.S., if he is coaching next season. He has made it very clear to me that he will not be looking at overseas or out of the country opportunities currently. That might shift down the road, but as of right now, it sounds like he's going to be remaining in the U.S. for his next coaching opportunity. So I hope he's not done in Salina. To me, Salina and Heron O'Neill just kind of go hand in hand right now. So yeah. I hope he returns. I hope everything works out for both the team, the league, and the coach as well. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of Heron O'Neill. Great guy, extremely easy to talk to and deal with. I really honestly can't say enough about him. He's an amazing person. But yeah, ultimately, I just wish him success no matter where he ends up next season, or, if he ends up staying in Salina, that's awesome too. So best of luck to Coach O'Neill, Coach O, as everybody calls him, Hall of Fame coach. So definitely could prove to be an interesting situation for sure. And he's also a guy that has ties to the IFL, the AFL, the NAL. So, he realistically could end up in any one of these leagues at any moment. Couple more topics at hand. We're going to try and breeze through these pretty quick because we're getting a little lengthy here, but a couple different notes about potential 2025 expansion for the AFL. Arizona has come out and stated that they are still trying to speak to the ownership group that's in the AFL. They would love to return to the AFL. They've made it very clear, but they have also said that they will explore other options if they cannot come to an agreement with the AFL. What that looks like, I don't know. Maybe they explore the NAL. I really doubt the IFL is going to pick up another Arizona team anytime soon. But then looking at the other options, does Oregon return? Oregon has been stating since they left that they never wanted to leave, that they want to figure it out, they want to return. And then on top of that, the Chicago Rush, after months of silence and essentially myself being told that they were dead, quote unquote, they resurfaced to say congratulations to Billings last night. So is there hope for Chicago coming back in 2025? Do we still get the Outlaws? Do the Oregon Black Bears come back? A lot of question marks, but we'll just keep this clean and simple. Just let me know if you guys think they come back, and then we'll move on to the IFL. Let's go to Dukon first.
I think Chicago has a pretty good chance of coming. If Oregon comes back, I do not think it would be AFL, and I think they'd have to have a different venue. Arizona is, to me, a big question mark. However, Darren Arbet's kind of running that show right now, and I saw a picture of him at the American Dream Mall during Media Day for the AFL. So I know at least his interest level is there, and because of his connection to the sport and I guess his legacy, I think that he himself is also an attractive person to bring along the ride for the Arena Football League going forward. So I think that if, they have a good venue in place and the money makes sense and everything like that, then I think they have a good shot of actually playing. Zach Kyleman tells me they're actually planning to play in Tempe, Arizona, which is a good 45-minute drive from Glendale. So because it's such a populated area, he tells me that there's, there could be a completely different fan base that doesn't even go to Rattlers games that would be excited to have, Arizona Bandits in that area. So that's it in a nutshell, what I think.
Hey, that's a great answer. Great answer. Actually, kind of getting text messages back from Coach Walker finally. He must have been a busy guy last night. I sent him a congratulations message and got a reply, but I guess they don't even arrive today back in Billings until like 11:30 tonight. So still out in New York or New Jersey. TJ, what are your thoughts on this? Do any of these teams join the AFL in 2025 or rejoin?
I could see the Chicago Rush just because of branding, nostalgia. They already have the hype a little bit. If they start advertising that they're coming back, guaranteed to get a following, in my opinion. Oregon Black Bears, I kind of agree with Dukon on that one because I feel like they definitely have the want to come back, but I don't see it in the AFL. I see it more of like NAL or maybe even AL, and get their footing down, play a season or two, and then maybe try to come back up to maybe the AFL or IFL. But I don't see them instantly coming back to the AFL next season. For the Arizona Rattlers, I would say just maybe take the intrigue and take the want to go back to a place very well, stay in the IFL for another year, see how season 2 is in the AFL, and then make the jump for 3 if things are looking pretty good.
Let me back that up just a bit. We're talking about the Arizona Outlaws with Darren Arbet.
Oh, my apologies. I was reading an article yesterday about the Rattlers wanting to maybe move back too. So
that would be extremely interesting, especially after everything that's gone on. But maybe some of those actions make a little bit more sense if they're trying to eliminate competition before they rejoin the AFL. But who knows? Definitely going to be a very interesting off season from start to finish this year. Again, I don't know if it's going to be as crazy as last year, but it's going to be close, I think. But with all that being said, we're going to go ahead and move on to the IFL, and I'm going to play a quick commercial.
I'm just being myself, cool as can be. it out your own way. It's just so easy.
If you happen to be one of the almost 60 people watching us talk about arena football right now, make sure to go check out Upside. It's a free app that'll pay you cash back for purchases you're probably already making on a daily basis. It paid me cash back on this Red Bull right here. So over 3 years, I've made over $1,000 cash back. I cannot not recommend that app because it's been extremely beneficial for me. So definitely check that out. Use our code SAM363682 and you help support Shady Sports Network in the process without spending a dime that you are not already spending. We're big on not trying to get your money without you getting a benefit. So we really appreciate any support. Go check out that app. I strongly recommend it, and I'm sure you'll love it. But moving on to the IFL, which has had some very big news recently, and that was where we were going to start this segment, and that's the Adidas agreement. Out of left field, in my personal opinion, Adidas, or it's a company that distributes Adidas, if I remember correctly. They have decided to step in and provide the jerseys and some of the sideline apparel for the IFL moving forward. One of the interesting notes, and I'm basically pointing this out because Cody Bryant, host of In the Alley, pointed this out, but the press release said 16 teams. So that is a little bit of an interesting note in there. Maybe they know something the rest of us don't, but it could just be a quick typo as well, or they're not privy to expansion info yet. With all that being said, what are your guys' thoughts on this partnership, and how does this make the IFL look that much more legitimate going forward? Let's go to Ducon first.
I think it's a huge announcement. I think it, in a nutshell, and you said to speed this up, so I'm not going to dwell on it too long. I think it was a very, very smart deal to get done. I think it does make the IFL look better. I think it puts more eyes on the IFL in terms of future national and international sponsorships, because they're like, well, if Adidas thought they were good enough, maybe they are, and so I think it's actually, again, goes to this sustainable growth that Todd Tryon talks about so much, is that nobody gave us a hint that this was even in the works. And this is the way the IFL delivers their news: is they get the deal done, it's signed on the paper, and then they announce it. It's a done deal. So I think it's very, very smart. It came out of left field. I wasn't expecting anything like this, but I think it's a great move by the IFL, and I think by Game One and Adidas as well.
I agree. TJ, your thoughts?
I think it's huge as well. Just the branding, the internationally known. Everyone's gonna, excuse the pun, but be uniform. They're not gonna have different, branding potentially. I think it's a big deal for the IFL. This is probably the biggest branding with clothing and apparel and stuff probably since Russell Athletic with the AFL. So this is a very good step for the IFL and just continuing their solid foundation as a league.
Yeah, agreed. Just another step in the right direction for the IFL, who have made many of them recently. So just to read through it real quick, leading team sports retailer Game One announced today that they have partnered with the IFL as their team gear provider for the next 5 years. That's also a huge factor in this. We are excited to collaborate with the IFL, said Pat Weber, president and CEO of Game One. The IFL's energetic spirit and passion for the game make this an ideal partnership. This is a great opportunity to join forces with Adidas in supporting the IFL's talented athletes, dedicated coaches, and outstanding organizations. Game One will outfit the 16 teams of the IFL in Adidas uniforms and apparel as they take the field next spring. The 19-week regular season is slated to kick off on March 16th, 2025. So another little bit of information there. To be the best, you have to align yourself with the best in every industry, which is precisely why we're partnering with Game One and Adidas, said IFL Commissioner Todd Tryon. When you have the opportunity to apply the quality and consistency of Adidas across our league, you make it happen. So definitely a great move by the IFL, as we have talked about. I again didn't see this coming. Never heard any whispers of it, nothing. And then all of a sudden it comes out of the blue. I think this is huge. It's huge for many different reasons, and I think it's going to be a big thing for the IFL moving forward. As Dukan said, that helps you get other partnerships and sponsorships, which I think we'll start seeing a lot more of for the IFL. I think one thing that everybody has kind of not really considered is the fact that most casual fans, most people who are going to be looking for sponsorship space do not necessarily know the intricacies of the differences between the IFL and the AFL, the NAL. It's all the same to them. It's just arena football. But when you start to see the media coverage between these two leagues, you begin to realize that from the IFL, all you ever really seem to get is positivity. Nothing bad's happening. No teams are folding. Yes, there was the fight in the stands earlier this season, but that was beyond their control. That was not the league. That was not their players. That was fans in the stands. But at the same time, on the other side, you have the AFL that is constantly all over the news for bad things. So I think this has really put arena football on the map for multiple reasons and kind of benefited the IFL and could benefit them a lot more long term as these sponsors kind of begin to realize that the IFL is the more stable bet of these three leagues. So could be interesting moving forward for sure.
Yeah.
We were originally going to talk coaching changes, but I think we're going to hold off on that till next week, given that we're running so long. But I do have one more question I want to pose to you guys before we get out of here for the day. I wanted to spend more time on the IFL, so I apologize for us spending so much time on the AFL and the NAL, but it just saves more for next week. But my big question to both of you guys, and it goes hand in hand with the announcement discussion we just had. Where does Todd Tryon rank in terms of sports commissioners currently right now? If you had to rank every league, and if you're not obviously familiar with every single commissioner, that's perfectly okay. But let's go to TJ first on this one. Where would you rank Todd Tryon?
He's definitely towards the top. That's for sure. And most of it is just with the way arena football and the indoor football league is as a whole. He has that he's a little brash at times. He can be blunt. I remember recently with the video streaming, it had some issues, and he made a public announcement. Guys, it's a free service. We're going to have kinks. We got to work it out. That was just full transparency and honesty. I think he's perfect for the league, and he knows how to deal in the right way. Slow growth. I mean, you've seen it over the years. He's really probably, aside from probably a lot of people are going to not like this, but aside from Roger Goodell at number one, he's probably number two.
That is a discussion and a debate for another day, my friend, and we will definitely have that one. Dukan, what are your thoughts on Todd Tryon and where
I disagree. That discussion and debate's happening now, Sam.
Okay.
Have you guys ever heard the term "In Todd We Trust"?
No, but we should. That should be all over.
Let's coin that phrase. In Todd We Trust. Look, I hate the NFL with a burning passion, but if Todd Tryon was the commissioner of the NFL, I might actually watch it. Let me just put it that way. Roger Goodell, I think, is one of the worst. I'm just going to say that right now. Sorry, TJ. I mean, I respect your opinion for sure. Look, Todd Tryon, and I'm going to say in Todd We Trust also in reference to Todd Walkenhorst of the NAL. Both of these guys are really brilliant, experienced individuals. Now, Todd Walkenhorst has a lot of experience in football, in different avenues, different departments of football, the business side of things, as well as the media side of things. So what he's doing with the NAL right now is actually really, really impressive. Now, Todd Tryon with the IFL is a business builder. His background is in building businesses. He's really, really good at looking at the numbers and saying, this is what we have. This is what we'd like to do. What's the reality? Can we do it in a year? Can we do it in 5 years? Can we do it in 10 years? and he finds out what's the reality, and he stays focused on that, and he isn't going around telling everybody what he's working on. Again, the IFL gets a deal done and signed on paper, and then it's the first time we hear about it. He's not busy telling everybody what he's doing. He's busy doing. And since Todd Tryon has come in as the IFL commissioner, you have seen outstanding growth in the IFL. And the issues that Sam brought up that you never hear of in the IFL is a result of Todd Tryon. That's what he does. He knows how to say, guys, let's just keep everything between ourselves. Let's work out the issues with ourselves. We don't need to be going on social media and posting everything about all of our issues. Let's just have some conversations and work these things out. And they do have their issues. The IFL has issues just like anybody else, but they've minimized them, and they keep everything in-house and behind the scenes. And even the ones within the IFL that hate each other, they still love the IFL. So it's just like, yeah, we're really pissed with the politics in the IFL, but we're glad to be here. And so they support what the IFL is doing as a league, and it's incredible. So yeah, I right now, when it comes to professional football, I say in Todd we trust, and I say that for both Todd Tryon and Todd Walkenhorst.
I love it. Great point. And let's get that hashtag trending on Twitter, Facebook, all over, because I think it's good. I mean, I personally think Todd Tryon is the best commissioner in any league, personally. I just think that the way that the IFL has changed since he took over that position has been insane.
Yes.
I remember going to see a game in 2017 where Colorado Crush could not get fans to show up for free. Colorado, my state, was just not aware of the indoor football league at all. I got tickets for free. I took my kids, my wife, my brother's stepkids at the time. We had a blast. It was a great time, but it was not the IFL of today. And that was in 2017. It's only been 7 years. And the league has changed so much since then in a positive manner that it is unbelievable for me to look back and remember sitting in a nearly empty arena watching Colorado play to watching teams like Tulsa draw the way they do.
Yes.
It's unbelievable. I think this progress by the league has been unmatched by any other league except maybe, the NFL. And if you think about that on the surface, that might be like, well, okay, they're progressing at the same rate as the NFL. The NFL is a multi-billion-dollar industry. We're talking about multi-million dollars for the IFL, tops. That's across the whole league, not one owner, so it's unbelievable. Like I said, the progress they've made and how quickly they've done it. So, I think that the IFL deserves all the praise in the world. I think Todd Tryon deserves all the praise in the world. And I would echo what you said about Todd Walkenhorst as well. I think since he's come into the NAL, he's done a great job of steering this thing in the right direction. Did it work entirely to plan in 2024? No, it did not. And I think he would tell you that too if you asked him. But at the same time, they had to take some gambles to get where they're at today. And they took calculated risks. Some of them blew up in their face, I'm not going to lie. But at the same time, if they hadn't taken those risks, would we even be talking about the NAL right now? Or would those teams have broken up and been in different leagues? So, realistically, I can't sit here and say that he made the wrong choices. And I won't until it's proven that way. But as of right now, it looks like they're making all the right decisions with the NAL. It looks like the IFL is making all the right decisions. Although I would say, Todd, if you're watching, Mr. Tryon, if you're watching, let's kind of remove that ban on having you on here. Let's get you back on to discuss the progress of the IFL. I know you're a little upset that, we've got some birdies giving us information here and there, but definitely understand that the league is going nothing but good places. And it doesn't matter if we leak a little bit of information here or there. It's only good, positive info coming out of the league anyway. So Super excited about the future of both of these leagues, all three of these leagues, if I'm being honest. But there is just a very positive future, in my opinion, on arena football in general. So I'm very excited about the 2025 and beyond. But before we get out of here, any final words from either of you guys? Let's go to Dukon first.
As always, I just appreciate you guys. I appreciate actually having, people that care about this industry to talk about it with. I mean, you guys are both really brilliant and have a lot of good insights, and I just enjoy it. So thank you.
Absolutely, man. And thank you for taking your time out every Saturday morning. I know you're a busy dude, and I really appreciate you being able to come on and give us your opinion, because it's one that I value highly. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
TJ, what about you, buddy? Any final words for today?
I don't think so. Sorry, I had to.
Oh man,
I'm just setting up for the great debate next week. Just happy that the Arena Bowl happened last night. It was a great game. Definitely, as always, nothing goes off without at least a rumor mill, situation with them. But great game, great way to end it, and we still have a lot of IFL action going on. So keep watching.
Absolutely. And we did not talk about the league today, but there's 2 more weeks remaining in the Arena League as well. Kind of a different kind of style play, still extremely entertaining. So I recommend you tune in. There's still, as far as I understand, there's still 2 teams kind of fighting for playoff spots right now. So could make for some interesting gameplay over the next 2 weeks. And, great players in the league as well. We just talked about Vincent Espinoza, who was with the Woo, jumped over to the Tucson. So it's kind of interesting to see the players bounce back and forth between these leagues as well. Yeah. Thank you guys both for coming on. I really appreciate your time every weekend. I appreciate you guys coming on, and you're not only here, you're prepared. You guys always know what's going on in the league. It really means a lot to me to be able to count on you guys to be here. And, like I said, take your time out of your Saturday morning to discuss some arena football, which, you could very well pass up on. So I really appreciate you both. This show would not be the same if it was me here just talking by myself. It would be a lot less entertaining, and I doubt we would have almost 60 people watching right now. So definitely appreciate you guys, appreciate your knowledge, your history on the game, your takes. I mean, you guys are honestly 2 of the best people I could have asked for to come on the show. So I really appreciate you. I really appreciate everybody who has come on this show and every other show in the past for Shady Sports Network. I'm sure some people saw my post recently. I'm taking a little bit of a step back from interviews for a little while. Had a little bit of a run on, no shows. I'm not blaming anybody. I understand everybody has a life. I just need to reevaluate my process to figure out what I'm doing wrong. So for anybody who may have taken an offense to that, I do not mean an offense. Like I said, I know every single person I asked to come on here is a busy person, especially if you're a team owner, a player, a coach who's got a full-time job outside of football. You do football as well. I know hard feelings. It's just something I need to reevaluate because I need to figure out where I'm going wrong in this process. We've had a lot of success, and it's because of everybody who's taken the time out to come on this channel. So I want to make sure that everybody knows that I appreciate every minute that you spent with me in the past 4 or 5 years. So it's been a lot of fun. We're still just getting started. I have no intents to put down this camera or this microphone anytime soon. So I hope you guys stick with us. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on ZO Productions on YouTube. Follow Arena Football Statement on Facebook. Follow TJ on Facebook. And then, as always, make sure you hit subscribe on Shady Sports Network on YouTube as well. Looking forward to next week, and hopefully we catch all 60 of you guys next week as well. So tune in with us every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern, and we'll talk some more arena football next week.
Thank
Thank
guys.
you guys again.